Everyone, it's Lori. Today's episode is all about editing color. So we often think every time we need to edit color, we're going to come down and modify our HSL, hue, saturation, or luminance. We also may decide to use the new point color right here in Lightroom. But today I want to give you 3 alternatives to editing color that make a really big and nice impact. So let's jump in and get started. The first one is consider your temperature and tint, which is part of color and it's also part of white balance. So with temperature and tint, it really allows you to change the image. You can see I can make it warmer or cooler, which does impact the color values in our image. We can also change the tint if we want to make it greener or if we want to give it more of that pink tone. This is a really soft, nice way to impact the color in your overall image. But what's great is you can actually use the mask tools. Let's select our subject. And once that's finished, there we go. We've got the nice overlay of our flower. We can actually use temperature and tint to softly impact the colors in this flower. So we can give it a little bit more of a hint of pink and magenta without having to do anything in the color channel. All right, so first option is to always consider your temperature and tint with your image. It's a great way to make alterations. We can look at one other example. Let's come over and let's look at this rose. I have not edited this image at all, but same thing. We could bring and make this background a little bit brighter green. We could also come over and reduce the pink tones, give it a little more red. We could even then give the green tones more of a blue or add some warmth. So temperature and tint's the number one way that you can go and make some adjustments to color. All right, let's go back to that image we were working with. There we go. Second is going to be your tone curve. So I love the tone curve. I talk about it in a lot of my videos. But the tone curve has these 3 color channels, your red, green, and blue. And this is also a way that you can make small micro adjustments to your color. So for example, we could come in the highlight area and we could add in the highlights a little bit more red tones. We could also go to our shadows and darken our green. Look at how that changed our green, just even slightly. You could go to the green channel here and of course maybe in the midtones make that green a little bit more bright, or we could scroll down and darken, kind of mute that green a little bit, which increases the magenta. You can see how you can play with that. So some people really love to use the tone curve to make some of those small adjustments to your image. It's a great way if you have an image that has a lot of blues and greens. Let me go over to this image. You can go in the middle and there you've got making it just a little bit more blue overall. You could also just come into the highlights and add some more blue tones, or you could reduce the blue. So it gives you a nice way if you have an image with a sky where you could play with that. All right, so tone curve is the second way that you can creatively impact color in your image. All right, the last way is actually color grading. Now, I don't use color grading a lot, but I wanted to talk about it in this video because it is a resource and a tool that some of you may find really helpful. So actually, I'm going to go back to this image, and I have not edited this image at all. It's pretty much straight out of camera. What I want to do is we can use color grading to impact the color tones in the image. So you've got these 3 options, but you can also come over and select one or the other. So I'm going to select the highlights. What I like to do is increase the saturation all the way over, and then you can slide the hue around. So if you wanted to add some more blue in the highlights, if you wanted to add more green, even maybe some yellow or orange tones, you can see how that's impacting the image. So if I want to give it maybe a little little bit more blue or purple, and it's hitting just the highlights. Now what I can do is bring that down, maybe just increase it a little bit, and I can even increase the brightness. Okay, so that's before and that's after. It's almost like doing a temperature slider. Now we can also go to the shadows in our image. So let's increase the saturation, and now this is going to tell you where those shadows are. So now if we want to add a little bit of an additional color, maybe some different shades of green, some warmth. I think I'd want to add maybe a little of that kind of blue-green. Now you can take your saturation down and maybe just give it just a little bit, and maybe we want to brighten it. So now we've just changed that green hue. You could also come around and see as you play with how different colors impact your image. Now, a lot of portrait photographers, wedding photographers have a style where they use color grading, so it can be a really fun tool. Let's look at another image and give it a try. I'm going to just pick one down here. Okay, this is an image that also has not been edited, but if I wanted to do an overall, I'm going to click global. I'm going to raise the saturation, and what I want to do is add a little bit of that pink tone. So I'm just going to come in like that. Now take the saturation all the way back down, maybe add a little luminance. Maybe reduce it just a little, but I'm just giving the image a little bit more of that pink tone. So this was before and this is after. It's very subtle, but you can see by using this color grading how I've impacted the color tones. I could also go up and add a little bit more blue. You can see how it's impacting the greens. If I wanted those greens to be a little brighter, bring that saturation either up or down, and even change the luminance. I could darken it if I wanted to. Now remember, color grading is making a global adjustment to your image. So it is not selective, it is going on the entire image. The only way to do it selectively would be to use your shadows or your highlights. So we could come in with our shadows, and if we want to just impact our shadows with some of that kind of magenta tone, we could do that. So now, slide that down, maybe give it a little brightness. And that may be a little weird in those shadows, but you can see as we change the color, look how we've drastically changed the emphasis. And then we could come in and go to our highlights, and we definitely want to change those a little bit. And maybe we want to add a little bit more of some blue tone to those, brighten that up, and then just bring down the saturation. So we've gone from this image to here with just a couple changes in our color grading panel. So color grading is a fun thing to try. It's a way, again, to impact the color tones in your image using the shadows, highlights, and your midtones. So that's a fun way. Let's go to midtones for this image. I'm going to raise that saturation all the way up. And I want to add some magenta tones to the midtones of this image. Then I'm going to bring the saturation back down, maybe even brighten those midtones. And now let's look at it before and after. It is very subtle, but you can see how it's enhancing those pink tones and even some of the pink within the green area. All right, so 3 alternative ways to impact color in your image. So don't forget these next time you're editing. Temperature tint, you've got the tone curve with the red, green, and blue, and also color grading. Those are alternatives or things that you can use in addition to the famous color mixer. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoy editing, and I'll see you in the next video.